The morning sun shone bright over Earth's orbital defense station when the impossible happened. Massive ships appeared from nowhere, blocking out the stars with their dark hulls. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the command center as her sensors went crazy with readings they had never seen before. "Ma'am, we have 12 unknown vessels approaching Earth," her communications officer called out. His voice shook slightly. They're huge. Each one is bigger than our entire defense fleet." Admiral Chen stared at the main screen. The alien ships moved with smooth grace, their surfaces reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, the answer had finally arrived. "Open all channels," Chen ordered. "Let's see if they want to talk." The response came immediately. The main screen flickered and showed a creature that made everyone in the command center step back. It stood tall, on 4 legs, with skin that looked like blue metal. Its head was long and narrow, with 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "I am Admiral HFY of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said. "We have come to evaluate your species for possible inclusion in our alliance. Prepare to receive our delegation." This, Admiral Chen felt her heart race. First contact with alien life. And they wanted to meet. "We welcome your delegation, Admiral HFY. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, of Earth Defense. We are honored by your visit." The alien's expression did not change. "Honor is earned, not given. We will determine if your species has any value to the galaxy." The alien ships moved closer to Earth. Smaller craft left the main vessels and headed toward the planet's surface. Chen watched nervously as humanity prepared to meet their first alien visitors. The meeting took place in the United Nations building in New York. World leaders gathered in the main assembly hall, speaking in quiet voices about what this moment meant for humanity. President Maria Santos of the United Earth Government sat at the head of the table, trying to look calm. When Admiral HFY entered the room, silence fell like a heavy blanket. The alien moved on his 4 legs with mechanical precision. Behind him came other creatures from different worlds. One looked like a giant insect with crystal armor. Another was tall and thin, almost see-through, with glowing eyes. A third appeared to be made of living rock. "Humans," HFY said as he took his place at the table. "We are here to decide your fate." President Santos stood up slowly. "We appreciate your visit, Admiral. We hope this meeting will be the start of a long friendship between our peoples." HFY made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not pleasant. "Friendship requires equals. We are here to see if you qualify for anything more than observation." The alien delegation spent the next 3 days studying humanity. They visited military bases, research centers, and cities around the world. They tested human strength, speed, and intelligence. They examined human technology and weapons. They asked endless questions about human society and government. Admiral Chen watched it all from the defense station. Reports came in from around the world about the alien visits. Every report said the same thing. The aliens seemed unimpressed with everything they saw. On the 3rd day, the delegation returned to the UN building for their final meeting. HFY looked even more dismissive than before. The rock creature, who had introduced himself as General Thane of the Korath Empire, spoke first. "Your physical abilities are weak," Thane said in a voice like grinding stone. "My people can lift 10 times what your strongest human can manage. We can survive in environments that would kill you in seconds." The insect creature, Captain Zixth of the Hive Collective, clicked her mandibles together. "Your technology is primitive. You have barely left your home world. We had faster-than-light travel when your species was still living in caves." The see-through alien, who called himself Mystic Veltar, spoke in a whisper that somehow filled the room. "Your minds are chaotic and undisciplined. You cannot even agree on how to govern your own planet. Most concerning, you show no psychic abilities at all." Admiral HFY nodded at each comment. "The evaluation is complete," he announced. "Humans are a typical young species. You have some intelligence, but you lack the strength, technology, and mental abilities needed to survive in the greater galaxy. President Santos felt her anger rising, but she kept her voice steady. What does this mean for humanity? We offer you two choices, Kethvar said. First, you can become a protectorate under Confederation rule. We will govern your world and guide your development. In exchange, we will protect you from the dangers of space. And the second choice? Santos asked. You remain isolated on your world. We will return in 1,000 years to see if you have developed enough to join the galaxy as equals. The room fell silent. Human leaders looked at each other with shocked faces. After waiting so long to meet other intelligent life, they were being told they were not good enough to join the galactic community. President Santos stood up again. We appreciate your offer, Admiral, but we need time to discuss this with our people. Kethvar's 6 eyes showed what might have been surprise. Most species beg to become protectorates. The galaxy is dangerous for the weak. Perhaps, Santos said. But humanity has always chosen its own path. We will give you our answer soon. The alien delegation left Earth that evening. Their ships moved away from the planet and took positions near the edge of the solar system. They would wait for humanity's decision. As Admiral Chen watched the alien ships on her screens, she felt a mix of fear and determination. The aliens had made it clear that they saw humans as weak and primitive. They offered protection, but only if humanity gave up its freedom. President Santos called an emergency session of the World Council. Leaders from every nation gathered to discuss the most important decision in human history. The debate lasted through the night and into the next day. Some argued that humanity should accept protectorate status. The aliens clearly had superior technology and knowledge. Under their rule, humanity could learn and grow safely. Others insisted that freedom was worth any risk. Humans had fought for independence throughout their history. They would not give it up now, even to aliens who seemed impossibly powerful. As the debate continued, none of the human leaders knew that their choice would soon become meaningless. Deep in space, long-range sensors were detecting something terrible approaching the solar system, something that would test not just human courage, but everything the aliens thought they knew about strength and power. The galaxy was about to learn that there were different kinds of might, and humanity was about to show them all what their species was truly capable of when everything they loved was threatened. The alarm that woke Admiral Chen from her sleep was unlike anything she had heard before. It was not the steady beep of a normal alert, but a harsh, screaming wail that made her blood turn cold. She ran to the command center in her sleep clothes, knowing that whatever had triggered this alarm was beyond anything they had prepared for. "Report," she shouted as she burst through the doors. Lieutenant Rodriguez turned from his station with a pale face. "Ma'am, our deep space sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching the solar system. The computer estimates over 50,000 ships." Chen felt her heart stop. 50,000? Are you sure? "Yes, ma'am. And Admiral, they're not Confederation ships." On the main screen, a three-dimensional map showed the approaching fleet as red dots moving toward Earth. The formation was like nothing in human military doctrine. The ships moved in perfect lines, as if they were part of a single, giant machine. "How long until they reach us?" Chen asked. "At their current speed, approximately 6 days." Chen grabbed her communications headset. "Get me President Santos immediately, and send an emergency signal to the Confederation ships." Within minutes, Admiral Kethvar appeared on the screen. His usual arrogant expression was replaced by something Chen had not seen before: fear. "Admiral Chen," Kethvar said, his metallic voice more urgent than usual. "We have detected the approaching fleet. You must begin evacuation procedures immediately." "Evacuation? Who are these ships? Are they another Confederation member?" Kethvar's 6 eyes closed for a moment. When he opened them, Chen could see something like sadness there. "They are Draconians, the enemy of all life in this galaxy." President Santos joined the call from the emergency command bunker beneath the White House. "Admiral Kethvar, we need to understand what we're facing. The Draconians are not like other species," Kethvar explained. They do not seek territory or resources in the way you understand. They consume entire civilizations. They strip planets bare of all life and turn the populations into slaves for their war machine. General Thane's rocky face appeared on another part of the screen. The Confederation has fought them for 3,000 years, he said. We have lost hundreds of worlds to their advance. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be negotiated with. They exist only to destroy and consume. President Santos felt ice in her veins. How do we fight them? You cannot, Captain Zix said, her insect features clicking nervously. The fleet approaching your system is the largest Draconian force ever detected. Even our combined fleets cannot match their numbers. Then what do you suggest? Santos asked. Admiral Kethvar looked uncomfortable. We can evacuate your essential personnel. Scientists, leaders, those with useful knowledge. Perhaps a few million humans can be saved and relocated to Confederation space. The words hung in the air like poison. Admiral Chen felt anger building in her chest. A few million? What about the other 12 billion people on Earth? They cannot be saved, Mystic Veltar whispered. The mathematics are simple. We do not have enough ships to evacuate your entire population. And the Draconians will arrive before additional vessels can reach this system. President Santos stood silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. No. I beg your pardon? Kethvar said. I said no. We don't abandon our people. We don't abandon our world. General Thane's rocky features showed confusion. You would choose death over survival? This makes no sense. It makes perfect sense, Santos replied. You've spent 3 days studying humanity, but you never understood the most important thing about us. We stand together, or we fall together. We've never abandoned our own, and we won't start now. Admiral Chen nodded in agreement. President Santos is right. If the Confederation fleet can't help defend this system, then humanity will defend it alone. The aliens looked at each other with expressions of shock and disbelief. Captain Zix clicked her mandibles rapidly. You cannot be serious. Your entire defense fleet consists of perhaps 200 ships. The Draconians are bringing 50,000. Then we'll make those 200 count, Chen said firmly. Admiral Kethvar stared at the humans for a long moment. This is madness. You are choosing suicide over life. We're choosing to live as humans rather than die as refugees, President Santos said. Thank you for your offer, Admiral. But humanity will face this threat on our own terms. The transmission ended, leaving the humans alone with their impossible choice. But as Admiral Chen looked around the command center, she did not see fear on her officers' faces. Instead, she saw determination. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez said quietly. What are your orders? Chen took a deep breath. Send a message to all Earth defense facilities. Condition red across the entire system. Full mobilization of all military assets. And get me a direct line to President Santos. We have 6 days to prepare for the fight of our lives. Across the solar system, humanity began to move with a speed and coordination that surprised even themselves. The Luna defense grid, still under construction, received emergency authorization to activate its experimental weapons systems. The Mars colonial government released their hidden fleet, ships built in secret using reverse-engineered alien technology from the Confederation visit. On Earth, the news of the approaching threat spread quickly. But instead of panic, something extraordinary happened. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Factories that had been producing civilian goods switched to military production. Scientists worked around the clock to weaponize every piece of technology they could find. Admiral Chen watched the mobilization reports with amazement. I've never seen anything like this, she told President Santos during one of their hourly briefings. Every human settlement in the system is contributing to the defense effort. That's what we do, Santos replied. When everything we care about is threatened, we become something more than the sum of our parts. From their position at the edge of the solar system, the Confederation observers watched humanity's preparations with growing confusion. Captain Zix sent regular reports to her superiors. The humans are not evacuating, she transmitted. Instead, They are mobilizing their entire species for war. Their industrial output has increased by 300% in 4 days. They are converting civilian vessels into military ships and turning their space habitats into fortresses. Admiral Kethvar studied the human activities with his 6 eyes. They are preparing to fight a battle they cannot win. Perhaps we underestimated their capacity for self-destruction. General Thane disagreed. No. I have studied many species facing extinction. Most dissolve into chaos and panic. The humans are doing the opposite. They are becoming more unified, more organized. It is unusual. Mystic Veltar reached out with his psychic abilities, trying to understand human thoughts and emotions. What he found disturbed him. Their minds are not chaotic as we first believed. In the face of this threat, they are achieving a level of coordination I have never encountered. It is as if their entire species is thinking with one mind. On the 5th day, long-range sensors detected the Draconian fleet slowing down as it approached the outer planets. The enemy ships began forming attack formations, preparing for what they expected to be an easy conquest. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, looking at the tactical display. In 18 hours, the battle for humanity's survival would begin. Around her, officers prepared their weapons and checked their systems one final time. "Admiral," Rodriguez said from his station. "We're receiving a transmission from the Draconian fleet." The main screen flickered, and a nightmare appeared. The Draconian commander was a massive creature, covered in black scales, with burning red eyes and teeth like daggers. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking bones. "Humans," the creature growled. "I am War Master Vextar of the Draconian Conquest Fleet. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make your suffering last for generations." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense. Your fleet is not welcome in this system. Turn around and leave. Or face the consequences." The Draconian War Master laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "You amuse me, small creature. We have consumed 1,000 worlds. Your pathetic fleet will be destroyed in the first hour of battle." "Maybe," Chen said calmly, "but you'll have to work for it." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, every human in the solar system prepared for the greatest test their species had ever faced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy that had never known defeat. But they had something the galaxy had forgotten. They had each other, and they would never give up. The moment War Master Vextar's transmission ended, humanity transformed. What the aliens watching from the edge of the system saw next would challenge everything they thought they knew about intelligent species and the nature of civilization itself. Within the first hour, every communication network on Earth began carrying the same message. It was not an order from any government or military command. It was something far more powerful. A simple request from one human to another. "This is it," the message said. "Everything we've ever built, everyone we've ever loved, depends on what we do in the next 24 hours. We need everyone. We need everything. Leave nothing in reserve." The response was immediate and absolute. In the shipyards orbiting Earth, workers who had never missed a day of rest began 16-hour shifts. Families brought food and blankets to the construction sites, turning the industrial platforms into communities united by a single purpose. Children too young to work helped by carrying tools and messages. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, the Earth's leading expert on alien technology, had not slept since the Draconian fleet was detected. She stood in her laboratory surrounded by pieces of Confederation equipment that had been, accidentally, left behind during the alien visit. "We can't match their weapons," she told her team of exhausted scientists. "But we don't need to. We just need to make them work harder than they expect." Her assistant, Dr. Park, looked up from a disassembled alien power cell. "What do you mean?" "Every weapon they have is designed to fight Confederation technology. But human engineering is different. We build things to break and be fixed, to be modified and improved. Their weapons expect armor that deflects energy. What if we use armor that absorbs it and redirects it back?" Across the solar system, Similar scenes were playing out. On Mars, Governor Zhang Wei stood before a massive hidden facility built into the planet's largest canyon. For months, human engineers had been secretly constructing ships using plans reverse-engineered from Confederation technology. "Open the doors," he ordered. The canyon floor split open, revealing a fleet of 300 vessels unlike anything in human military records. They were sleek and fast, built using human ingenuity combined with alien science. But more importantly, they were crewed by volunteers who understood that failure meant the end of everything they had ever known. In the asteroid belt, Mining Station Commander Rosa Martinez activated protocols that had been prepared but never tested. Massive automated mining platforms began converting raw materials into weapons and defensive systems at a pace that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. "We're not just building weapons," she told her staff. "We're building hope." But the most remarkable change was happening on Earth itself. Every major city began operating as a single organism. Traffic systems redirected themselves to support military movements. Factories that had made cars and computers began producing ammunition and armor. Universities became research centers focused entirely on finding ways to hurt Draconian ships. In small towns and rural areas, people organized themselves without any central command. Farmers loaded their equipment onto transport ships, heading to space stations that needed heavy machinery. Teachers became coordinators, organizing millions of volunteers into efficient work groups. Children collected materials that could be recycled into useful components. President Santos watched it all from the emergency command center, amazed by what she was seeing. "How is this possible?" she asked her military advisors. "We're seeing coordination on a scale that shouldn't be possible without decades of planning." General Kim, the head of global defense, shook his head in wonder. "It's not coordination in the way we usually think of it, ma'am. It's something else. Every human seems to understand exactly what needs to be done, and they're doing it without being told." From their observation position, the Confederation officers watched the human transformation with growing confusion and concern. Captain Zixth sent increasingly urgent reports to her superiors. "The humans are not behaving as predicted," she transmitted. "Our models suggested their civilization would collapse under the stress of impending invasion. Instead, they are achieving levels of efficiency and coordination that exceed our own capabilities." Admiral Kethvar used his ship's advanced sensors to study human activities more closely. What he found disturbed him. They are not using any form of psychic control or technological coordination system. This appears to be voluntary cooperation on a planetary scale. Mystic Veltar reached out with his mental abilities, trying to understand how the humans were achieving such unity. "I sense something unprecedented," he reported. "Their individual minds remain separate, but they are connected by something stronger than psychic bonds. They share a common purpose so complete that they function as a single entity while maintaining their individual personalities." General Thane watched human mining operations in the asteroid belt convert raw rock into defensive platforms in record time. This level of industrial mobilization should take months, even with advanced technology. They are accomplishing it in days using primitive equipment. On Earth, Dr. Harrison made a breakthrough that would change the course of the coming battle. By studying the energy signatures of Confederation weapons, she discovered that Draconian technology operated on similar principles, but at much higher power levels. "We can't build shields that will stop their weapons," she explained to Admiral Chen during an emergency briefing. "But we can build weapons that will disrupt their shields. If we modify our missile systems to create cascading energy failures in their defensive systems, their own powerful weapons will work against them." Chen nodded grimly. "How long do you need? The prototypes are ready now. We can have production models installed across the fleet in 12 hours. Do it." As the final day before the Draconian arrival began, humanity made its last preparations. But these were not the desperate actions of a doomed species. Instead, they showed a level of strategic thinking and tactical innovation that impressed even their alien observers. The Luna defense grid activated systems that had been theoretical until this moment. Massive energy collectors began drawing power directly from the sun, storing it in batteries that could deliver devastating pulses of directed energy. The weapons violated several Confederation treaties on excessive destructive capability. But no one cared about galactic law anymore. On Mars, the secret fleet prepared for its first, and possibly last mission. These ships were not just copies of alien technology. Human engineers had improved on the designs, making them faster, more maneuverable, and capable of tactics that Confederation doctrine considered impossible. "We're not going to fight like them," Admiral Chen explained to the combined human fleet commanders during their final briefing. "We're going to fight like us. Fast, dirty, and with everything we've got." The asteroid belt had been converted into a massive fortress. Mining platforms became weapons batteries. Cargo haulers became kamikaze drones. Even civilian transport ships were retrofitted with whatever weapons could be attached to their hulls. But the most important preparation was invisible to outside observers. Across the solar system, humans were connecting with each other in ways that transcended normal communication. Families sent messages of love and support. Strangers shared resources without question. Military units from different nations worked together as if they had trained together for years. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar muttered as he watched human fleet movements. "They have no central command system capable of coordinating these maneuvers. How are they achieving such precise timing across light minutes of distance?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A young human communication technician named Marcus Webb had been experimenting with quantum entanglement communication arrays that the Confederation had dismissed as too primitive for practical use. "Admiral Chen," Webb reported excitedly, "I've managed to create instantaneous communication links between all major military units in the solar system. We can coordinate our entire defense in real time." Chen stared at him. "That's supposed to be impossible with human technology." "It is," Webb grinned. "But human engineering has always been about making the impossible work anyway." As the last hours ticked away before the Draconian arrival, humanity completed its transformation. 12 billion people had become a single weapon, pointed at the heart of their greatest enemy. They had no illusions about the odds they faced, but they had something their enemies had never encountered: the absolute certainty that they would fight to the end for everything they loved. The stage was set for a battle that would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. The Draconian fleet entered the solar system like a swarm of metal locusts, their dark ships blotting out the stars. War Master Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. 50,000 ships against what appeared to be fewer than 300 human vessels scattered throughout the system. "This will be over quickly," he growled to his subordinates. "Begin the standard consumption pattern. Destroy their defenses. Harvest their population. Strip their world clean." The first wave of Draconian ships moved toward Earth, expecting the terrified humans to cluster around their home planet in a desperate final defense. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Admiral Chen, commanding the human forces from the rebuilt Luna Defense Station, watched as the enemy fleet approached. Around her, the command center hummed with quiet efficiency. Every officer knew their role, and more importantly, they knew they were part of something larger than themselves. "All units, this is command." Chen spoke into her communications array, knowing her voice was being heard simultaneously across the entire solar system. "Remember, we're not trying to win a traditional space battle. We're trying to teach these bastards that humanity doesn't go quietly into the night." The first surprise came when the Draconian advance scouts reached the outer asteroid belt. They expected to find scattered mining platforms and easy targets to destroy for psychological effect. Instead, they found a fortress. The asteroid mining station Sierra 7 had been converted into something entirely new. A weapons platform disguised as civilian infrastructure. When the Draconian ships came within range, Commander Martinez triggered systems that no alien military doctrine had prepared for. "Fire everything," she ordered simply. The mining lasers that had been used to cut apart asteroids were suddenly redirected at enemy ships, but these were not just industrial tools anymore. Dr. Harrison's modifications had turned them into weapons that created cascading energy failures in Draconian shields. The first 3 enemy ships simply vanished as their own defensive systems turned against them. The remaining scouts retreated, but not before transmitting data that would puzzle Draconian commanders for the rest of the battle. Their weapons should not be capable of penetrating our shields, War Master Vextar snarled as he studied the reports. What kind of technology are these primitives using? His tactical officer, a creature with multiple eyes and razor-sharp claws, studied the sensor data. War Master. They appear to be using modified industrial equipment. Our shields are designed to deflect military-grade energy weapons, not mining tools. Vextar's eyes burned with anger. Then adapt our shields and crush them. But adaptation would prove impossible, because humanity was fighting unlike any species the Draconians had ever encountered. As the main fleet advanced toward Earth, they found themselves under attack from directions that made no tactical sense. The human ships did not form battle lines or fight in organized formations. Instead, they moved like a pack of predators, each unit supporting the others in ways that seemed random, but were actually perfectly coordinated through the quantum communication network. Captain Sofia Reyes, commanding the human destroyer Phoenix, led her ship in a suicidal-seeming attack run against a Draconian dreadnought 10 times her size. But as she closed distance, 2 other human ships approached from different angles, their timing so perfect it seemed impossible. "Now!" Reyes shouted. And all 3 ships fired simultaneously. The Draconian commander expected to destroy all 3 attackers easily. Instead, he found that the human weapons were designed to work together in ways his technology could not counter. The first ship disabled his forward shields, the second disrupted his weapon systems, and the third delivered a payload that turned his own power core into a bomb. As the Draconian dreadnought exploded, Captain Reyes was already racing toward her next target, guided by information from human scouts positioned throughout the system. Admiral Kethvar watched the battle from his observation position, his 6 eyes wide with disbelief. How are they achieving such precise coordination? Their ships are separated by millions of kilometers, yet they fight as if they share a single mind. The answer was something the Confederation had never developed: true unity of purpose. Every human in the solar system was connected not by technology alone, but by an absolute determination to protect everything they held dear. In the Luna Defense Grid Control Center, Technical Sergeant Lisa Park coordinated defensive fire with a precision that seemed impossible. She was not just calculating firing solutions, she was feeling the rhythm of the battle, sensing when her weapons would have maximum effect. "Target the flagship's power distribution nodes," she called to her gunners. "Fire in 3, 2, 1. The Luna weapons fired at the exact moment a human fighter squadron completed their attack run on the same target. The combined assault overwhelmed the Draconian flagship's defenses, and War Master Vextar found his bridge plunged into darkness. But humanity's greatest advantage was not their weapons or their coordination. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat. When the cargo hauler New Horizons lost its engines and weapon systems, Captain James Wilson made a decision that would be remembered for generations. Instead of abandoning ship, he used the hauler's remaining maneuvering thrusters to ram directly into a Draconian carrier. "This is New Horizons," Wilson transmitted as his ship accelerated toward the enemy. "Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth we did our job." The impact destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the Draconian formation that allowed 12 human fighters to penetrate deep into enemy territory. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human crews making impossible sacrifices, coordinating their deaths to create opportunities for their comrades. The Draconians found themselves fighting an enemy that treated every engagement like the fate of their entire species hung in the balance. Because it did. War Master Vextar restored power to his bridge and stared at the tactical display with growing horror. In 6 hours of battle, he had lost nearly 2,000 ships. The humans had lost over half their fleet, but they were still fighting with the same desperate intensity. "This is impossible," he growled. "No species fights like this. They should have surrendered or broken formation hours ago." His tactical officer offered a theory that chilled even a Draconian commander. "War Master, I believe they are not fighting to win. They are fighting to make us pay the highest possible price for victory." 1. As if to prove this point, the human defense reached its crescendo. Admiral Chen, realizing that conventional tactics would only delay the inevitable, authorized the activation of humanity's most desperate weapon. Deep within Mercury's orbit, construction crews had spent the last 5 days building something that should have been impossible with human technology. A device that could harness the power of the sun itself. "This is Admiral Chen to all units," she broadcast. "Sol Lance is charging. All ships move to safe distance." This is not a drill. The Confederation observers watched in horror as humanity prepared to use their own star as a weapon. "They cannot be serious," Captain Zixt transmitted urgently. The energy levels required would destabilize their entire system, but humans had always been willing to risk everything for freedom. The Sol Lance charged with power drawn directly from the sun's core, concentrating stellar energy into a beam that would either save their world or destroy it. War Master Vextar saw the energy readings and finally understood what kind of species he was fighting. "They would rather die free than live as slaves," he whispered, recognizing something he had thought extinct in the galaxy. Absolute courage. The beam fired, cutting through space like the finger of an angry god. It struck the Draconian flagship and several nearby vessels, obliterating them instantly. But more importantly, it sent a message that reached every ship in both fleets. Humanity would never surrender. They would fight until the last human drew breath, and they would make their enemies pay in blood for every victory. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, something fundamental shifted in the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be truly mighty. The Sol Lance's beam faded, leaving only empty space where War Master Vextar's flagship had been. For a moment, the entire battle stopped as both sides absorbed what had just happened. The humans had turned their own star into a weapon and used it without hesitation. In the silence that followed, something unprecedented occurred in Draconian military history. The remaining enemy ships, leaderless and facing an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of warfare, began to retreat. Admiral Chen watched the enemy withdrawal from her command center, hardly believing what she was seeing. Are they actually pulling back?" Lieutenant Rodriguez checked his sensors 3 times before answering. "Yes, ma'am. The Draconian fleet is withdrawing to the edge of the system. All remaining ships are moving away from Earth. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Of humanity's original fleet of 800 ships, only 160 were still operational. The Luna defense grid had lost 60% of its weapons platforms. Mars had taken heavy bombardment, and 3 asteroid mining stations had been completely destroyed. Most heartbreaking of all, over 2 million humans had died in the battle. Their names would be remembered forever, carved into monuments on every human world that would ever be built. Yet as Admiral Chen looked around her command center, she did not see defeat on her officers' faces. Instead, she saw pride. They had faced the galaxy's greatest nightmare and forced it to retreat. They had proven that humanity would never be conquered. From the edge of the solar system, the Confederation fleet watched in stunned silence. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical displays, trying to process what he had witnessed. "They did it," he whispered. "They actually made the Draconians retreat." Captain Zix clicked her mandibles nervously. "This changes everything. The Draconians have never withdrawn from a target system. They have never been forced to retreat by any species." General Thane's rocky features showed something like respect. The humans fought like no species in recorded history. They did not fight to preserve their military strength or maintain strategic positions. They fought as if every single battle was worth dying for. Mystic Veltar reached out with his psychic abilities, trying to understand the emotional state of the surviving humans. What he found amazed him. "They are not celebrating victory," he reported. "They are already preparing for the next attack. They assume the Draconians will return with a larger fleet." Admiral Kethvar studied the human activities through his ship's sensors. Despite their devastating losses, the humans were already beginning reconstruction. Rescue ships were recovering survivors from damaged vessels. Construction crews were rebuilding weapons platforms. The entire solar system was organizing itself for continued resistance. "They are not wrong," Kethvar admitted. "The Draconians will return. They cannot allow this defeat to stand, or other species might believe resistance is possible." But something had changed in the galaxy. News of the human victory spread through Confederation space, faster than any official communication. On worlds that had given up hope of ever defeating the Draconians, people began to whisper about the small species that had made the impossible happen. President Santos stood in the ruins of the United Nations building, which had taken a direct hit during the battle. Around her, rescue workers searched for survivors while construction teams prepared to rebuild. The building would be stronger than before, just like humanity itself. "Madam President," her aide called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral HFY." The alien's image appeared on a portable screen, his 6 eyes showing an expression Santos had never seen before. "Humility. President Santos," HFY said formally. "The Confederation Council has sent me to make a formal proposal." "I'm listening," Santos replied. "We wish to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Confederation, with all rights and privileges accorded to founding species. Furthermore, we would like to propose that Earth become the headquarters for joint anti-Draconian operations." Santos felt her heart skip. 3 days ago, the aliens had offered humanity protection in exchange for their freedom. Now, they were offering partnership as equals. "Why?" she asked simply. Admiral HFY was quiet for a long moment. "Because we have learned something from watching your species fight. For 3,000 years, the Confederation has fought the Draconians to a stalemate. We have preserved our worlds and our people, but we have never truly threatened their expansion." General Thane appeared beside HFY. "Your tactics are unlike anything in our military doctrine. You fight not just to win, but to make your enemies pay such a high price that victory becomes meaningless to them." Captain Zix added her voice to the conversation. "More importantly, you demonstrated something we thought impossible. Total species unity in the face of extinction. Every human fought as if the fate of your entire civilization depended on their individual actions." "Because it did," Santos said simply. Mystic Veltar's transparent features flickered with something like awe. "That is what we failed to understand. For most species, individuals fight for themselves, their families, perhaps their nations. But humans fight for concepts: freedom, dignity, the right to exist on their own terms." Admiral HFY leaned forward. "We have studied your battle recordings. Your ships coordinated across impossible distances without centralized control. Your civilians converted their entire civilization into a military-industrial complex in less than a week. Most remarkably, your people chose death over slavery without a moment's hesitation. These are the qualities we need to finally defeat the Draconians," General Thane admitted. "Not just superior weapons or stronger ships, but the will to fight until victory is achieved, regardless of cost." President Santos looked out at her devastated city, where humans were already working to rebuild everything they had lost. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A new kind of alliance," HFY explained. "Not a confederation of independent species pursuing their own interests, but a true union dedicated to ending the Draconian threat forever, under human leadership." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive and weak were now asking humans to lead them in the galaxy's greatest war. Santos smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Let me discuss this with my people. But Admiral, I think you should know something about humans." "What is that?" "We don't just fight to survive. We fight to win. And we never, ever give up." 6 months later, the solar system had been transformed into the most heavily fortified region of space in the galaxy. The Luna defense grid had been rebuilt and expanded, incorporating Confederation technology with human innovation. Mars hosted a combined fleet training facility where alien officers learned human tactics. But the most remarkable change was in humanity itself. The species that had been dismissed as weak and primitive was now teaching the galaxy's most advanced civilizations how to fight with unity and purpose. Admiral Chen, now commanding the Joint Task Force preparing for the next Draconian invasion, stood on the bridge of the new flagship Indomitable. Around her, human and alien officers worked side by side, united by a common goal. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting another Draconian fleet approaching. This one is even larger than the last." Chen smiled grimly. Then they still don't understand what they're dealing with. All ships, prepare for battle. Let's show them again what it means to fight humans. Across the galaxy, the message was spreading. The Draconians could be defeated. The species that had terrorized civilizations for millennia could be made to retreat. All it took was the will to fight like humans, together, without reservation, and with the absolute certainty that some things were worth dying for. The day humans showed aliens what mighty truly meant had changed everything. It was not about having the strongest body or the most advanced technology. True might came from the courage to stand together when everything seemed lost, to fight for principles rather than just survival, and to never accept defeat as long as breath remained. In the years that followed, when young beings throughout the galaxy learned about courage and determination, they would hear the story of humanity's first battle. They would learn about the species that faced impossible odds and chose to fight anyway, because that was what it meant to be human. And in the deepest reaches of space, the Draconians learned to fear a new sound, the battle cry of united humanity, echoing across the stars with a simple message that would reshape the galaxy forever. We are human. We stand together. And we will never surrender.